There's a prison most people never realize they're trapped in. No bars, no locks, no guards. Yet millions of souls remain captive their entire lives, giving away pieces of themselves until nothing authentic remains. Picture this. Someone calls, you drop everything. Someone needs a favor, you say yes before they finish asking. Someone wants your time, your energy, your attention, and you hand it over like it costs you nothing. But here's what Carl Jung discovered in his decades of studying the human psyche, something that will shake you to your core. Your availability isn't kindness. It's not generosity. It's not love. It's self-abandonment. And the moment you understand what Jung called the shadow of the people-pleaser, everything changes. Your relationships transform. Your confidence skyrockets. People start treating you differently, with more respect, more desire, more genuine appreciation. By the end of this video, you'll uncover the psychological truth that most people spend their entire lives running from. The truth about why being too available doesn't make people love you more. It makes them value you less. And more importantly, you'll discover Jung's roadmap to reclaiming your authentic self-worth. But first, let me tell you about a patient who walked into Jung's office in 1925, completely broken. Her name was Maria, a successful businesswoman on the outside, completely hollow on the inside. She came to Jung because despite having everything, career, family, social status, she felt invisible. People used her, took from her, then discarded her when convenient. I give and give, she told Jung, but I feel emptier each day. Jung saw something in Maria that she couldn't see in herself, something he would later call the tyranny of availability. She wasn't being kind. She was being controlled by an unconscious fear so deep, so primal, that she'd built her entire identity around avoiding it, the fear of rejection. Jung realized that Maria, like millions of others, had created what he termed a false persona, a mask designed to be perpetually pleasing, perpetually available, perpetually safe from the pain of being unwanted. But here's Jung's shocking discovery. The very behavior she thought protected her from rejection was actually guaranteeing it. Think about it. When something is always available, always accessible, always there, what happens to its value in your mind? You take it for granted. This isn't cruelty. This isn't manipulation. This is human psychology at its most fundamental level. We value what we can't easily have. We treasure what requires effort to obtain. We respect what maintains boundaries. Jung called this the scarcity principle of the psyche. And once you understand it, you'll never see relationships the same way again. Jung spent years studying what he called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we hide, even from ourselves. And he discovered something disturbing about people who are always available. They're not actually generous. They're terrified. Deep in their unconscious mind lives a primitive fear. If I'm not useful, I'm not wanted. If I'm not needed, I'm not loved. If I say no, I'll be abandoned. This fear creates what Jung termed compulsive availability, a psychological prison where you become addicted to being needed because you've confused your worth with your usefulness. But here's where it gets dark. Jung found that this compulsive availability triggers something equally unconscious in others: contempt. Not conscious contempt. Most people don't wake up thinking, I'm going to disrespect the people who are always available to me. But unconsciously, when someone has no boundaries, no sense of their own value, no ability to say no, something primitive in us reads that as weakness, and we respond accordingly. Jung documented case after case of this pattern. The friend who calls only when they need something. The romantic partner who takes your availability for granted. The family member who expects you to drop everything because you're always so accommodating. They're not bad people. They're simply responding to the signal you're unconsciously sending. My time has no value. My needs don't matter. I exist to serve others. This creates what Jung called the availability trap, the more available you make yourself, the less available others become to you. Jung wasn't the first to understand this principle. Ancient wisdom traditions had been teaching it for millennia, hidden in parables and stories. Consider the Taoist principle of Wu Wei, strategic non-action. The idea that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all. Or the Buddhist concept of non-attachment, holding things lightly, including relationships and outcomes. Even Jesus, in his teachings, demonstrated this principle. He didn't heal everyone who asked. He didn't visit every town that wanted him. He withdrew from crowds at the height of his popularity. Why? Because he understood what Jung would later prove scientifically. Value is created through choice, not availability. Jung found this pattern across cultures, across centuries, across every human civilization he studied. The people who were most revered, most respected, most genuinely loved. They all shared one characteristic. They valued themselves enough to be selective with their time, energy, and attention. This selectivity wasn't selfishness. It was self-respect. And Jung discovered that self-respect is contagious. When you respect yourself, others can't help but respect you too. But when you abandon yourself, when you make yourself too available, you're unconsciously teaching others to abandon you as well. Modern neuroscience has now proven what Jung intuited decades ago. There's actual brain chemistry behind why being too available backfires. When something is scarce or requires effort to obtain, our brains release dopamine, the pleasure chemical that creates desire and motivation. But when something is constantly available, dopamine levels drop. The brain literally becomes bored. This explains why the friend who texts back immediately gets ignored, while the one who takes hours to respond gets pursued. It's not game playing, it's biology. Jung understood this instinctively. He knew that the human psyche craves what psychologist Robert Cialdini would later call the principle of scarcity. We want what we can't easily have. We value what isn't always accessible. But here's the crucial part Jung emphasized. This isn't about manipulation or playing hard to get. It's about genuine self-respect. There's a massive difference between being strategically unavailable to manipulate others and being naturally selective because you genuinely value your time and energy. People can sense the difference. Manipulation feels cold and calculating. Authentic self-respect feels magnetic and attractive. Jung's patients who learned this distinction didn't just improve their relationships, they transformed their entire sense of self. Through his work with thousands of patients, Jung identified 4 distinct stages people go through when reclaiming their authentic self-worth. Stage 1. The awakening. This is where you realize you've been giving yourself away. You start noticing how people treat you differently based on your availability. You begin to see the patterns Jung described. Most people feel guilt in this stage. Am I being selfish? Am I becoming mean? But Jung assured his patients this guilt was normal. It's the false persona fighting for survival. Stage 2. The resistance. Here's where people start setting boundaries, but inconsistently. They say no sometimes, yes others. They feel torn between their old patterns and their emerging self-respect. Jung warned that others might resist your changes during this stage. People who benefited from your over-availability might try to guilt you back into old patterns. Stage 3. The integration. This is where authentic self-respect becomes natural. You no longer feel guilty for having boundaries. You stop over-explaining your decisions. You become comfortable with the discomfort others might feel when you're not constantly available. Stage 4. The transformation. Finally, you experience what Jung called the paradox of attraction. By becoming less available, you become more desirable. By respecting yourself, others respect you more. By valuing your time, others value it too. But Jung discovered something unexpected in this final stage. The people who truly care about you don't just accept your boundaries. They're relieved by them. Why? because they no longer have to carry the unconscious guilt of taking advantage of someone who won't advocate for themselves. Jung made a disturbing discovery about people who constantly sacrifice themselves for others. Their sacrifices often come with hidden strings attached, unconscious expectations of gratitude, loyalty, and reciprocation. This creates what he called the martyr complex, a toxic pattern where your giving becomes a form of control. You give so much that others feel indebted to you. Then, when they don't meet your unconscious expectations, you feel betrayed. Sound familiar? Jung realized that true generosity can only come from a place of fullness, not emptiness. When you're constantly available because you need to be needed, your giving is actually taking. You're taking validation, taking a sense of purpose, taking an identity. But when you give from a place of choice, when your cup is already full, your generosity becomes pure. It has no hidden agenda, no unconscious strings, no expectations of return. This is why people who respect themselves and set boundaries often become more generous, not less. They give because they want to, not because they have to. So how do you break free from the prison of over-availability? Jung developed specific practices that his patients use to reclaim their authentic self-worth. The pause principle. Before saying yes to any request, pause. Ask yourself, am I saying yes because I want to, or because I'm afraid to say no? This simple pause breaks the automatic pattern of compulsive availability. The energy audit. Jung had patients track their energy levels throughout the week. When did they feel drained? When did they feel energized? They discovered that giving from emptiness always led to resentment, while giving from fullness felt effortless. The boundary script. Jung helped patients develop simple phrases to maintain boundaries without over-explaining. That doesn't work for me. I'm not available then. I need to check my schedule. No justification required. The value recognition. This was Jung's most powerful technique. He had patients write down everything they brought to their relationships, their time, energy, skills, emotional support, resources. Most had never consciously recognized their own value. The results were immediate. When you truly understand what you offer, you stop giving it away cheaply. Here's Jung's ultimate truth about self-worth, the insight that will transform everything if you truly understand it. Your availability isn't a gift to others. It's a message about how you see yourself. When you're always available, always accommodating, always putting others' needs before your own, you're unconsciously communicating, I don't matter. My time has no value. My needs are less important than yours. And the world responds to that message exactly as you'd expect. But when you begin to honor yourself, when you become selective with your time, protective of your energy, respectful of your own needs, you send a different message. I am valuable. My time matters. I deserve respect. And suddenly, the world starts responding to that message too. This isn't about becoming cold or uncaring. It's about becoming whole. It's about loving yourself enough to stop abandoning yourself for others' approval. Jung believed that this transformation, from compulsive availability to authentic self-respect, was one of the most important journeys a human being could take. Because when you stop being too available and start honoring your worth, you don't just change your life, you give others permission to do the same. The question Jung would leave you with is this. Will you continue living from the fear of not being needed, or will you finally step into the truth of being inherently valuable? The choice, as always, is yours. But now you know what's really at stake. Your authentic self is waiting. The question is, are you ready to meet it?